couple of years ago, I saw an ad in a real estate magazine for two damaged houses for $39,000. But when I went to see the houses, I quickly discovered why they were for that price. They were decrepit, half burnt, and needed a lot of work. Although I had originally made an offer, I eventually walked away. But something called me back, and I wasn't sure what that something was until a historian offered to do research on the house. And when he showed me what he had found, I was moved beyond measure. I felt like I had stepped into a lineage. This is where the house is, on an island, St. Croix. And this is St. Croix before it was owned. And this is when it was occupied by the Dutch, and then the English, and then the French, and then the Danes, and then by the Americans.
Denmark sold these islands to the United States for $25 million. The Americans arrived to take possession. This is the only picture in existence of the ceremonies that mark the transfer of the Virgin Islands to the United States.
And this is what St. Croix looked like when Elizabeth Abraham owned my house. At the time, she is registered to be Moravian, 35 years old. But she was actually born an African from the Popo Kingdom near modern Benin. She was among the 50,000 Africans who were brought to St. Croix to become something that would separate their souls from their bodies. For some, would only be concerned with their bodies and the physical labor that it could produce. And to others, they would try to redeem themselves by being concerned with their souls. And in 1750, Elizabeth was owned by William Oysterman, a free Negro, and through her own enterprise, she was able to buy her son, Joseph. She bought him so that she could free him. And soon after, she was able to buy and free herself. When I bought this house, I didn't know anything about this history. As an artist, I was looking for an inexpensive space to turn into a studio. When I went to look at the houses, I saw that they were located in what we call the back streets of town. And this idea of being in the back is not just about the physical distance from the water, the harbor. It was also about being pushed back and out of our collective memory. For how did we almost mostly forget that this neighborhood was called Nega Gata, Black Gut, later to be known as Free Gut.
Who's gonna lose, girl, but let some candy ground stop. Play the road, play the road. Play the road, and they get them past going for our freedom.
Free Gut was formed in 1747 when the government made a mandate that free colored people, those people who had been manumitted or freed, were to build their houses and own property in the Free Gut, which was 2 blocks between Hill Street, East Street, and Fisher Street. And on the north-south axis was the Queen Cross Street and King Cross Street.
Free Gut was formed primarily to define space in the evolving town of Christiansted for the emerging free-colored community of the town. It was deliberately set up to segregate black people from the rest of the community and place them in an area where they not only would live separately, but also could be watched closely in terms of their behaviors and so on.
You know, here will a big say, nigga know what more than 20 cents a day. Are you here? Will I be gonna say? We know what? More than 20 cents a day. So let we walk and drink rum whole night before we go ride and La Biga carries in. I rather walk and drink rum whole night before me go ride and La Biga carries in.
There were lots of ordinances against the free-colored. They had to wear certain kind of clothes. They couldn't wear certain kinds of jewelry. They had to have their free briefs with them all the time. The men had to wear these red and white cockades on their hats to show that they were free-colored.
Their circumstances and status was in flux at any given time. I mean, they could do things for a while, and when those became problematic in terms of the white community and the established order, then restrictions were put on them in order to make sure that they were still identified as second-class citizens. They could not be seen as having the same rights and privileges and opportunities as the white population.
Nega Gata, free gut, was built along a series of dried river beds. A gut. This is what a gut looks like when it's dry, and what it looks like when it's wet, and during a storm. And this is what a storm looks like when it's a hurricane, and this is what it sounds like. In 1772, a hurricane sweeps across the island and levels many of the houses throughout Christiansted. And after that, free gut stops being used in addresses. Instead, we see the names of the streets. We begin seeing freed-colored living at Strand Street and Prince Street, Hill Street, and that they are no longer living in the segregated and controlled 4 blocks. They are everywhere. No longer in the pockets of Christiansted. They are Christiansted.
Now, when you look at the architecture in Christiansted, one of the things that fascinates people is that most of this was done by local people. Yes, they might have brought in a mason or a specialized person from Denmark or some other country, but most of the work was done by our local carpenters and masons and plumbers and pipe fitters and all of these people. So when you're looking at this, even though it was not always done for our benefit, it's our work. It's our history, it's our legacy that you're looking at.